My husband stole my assets and cheated with his ex, so I cut him out of my life. So I'm sitting here at 3 a.m. typing this on my phone because I can't sleep. And I figure some of you might learn something from the absolute train wreck my life turned into. Fair warning, this is going to be a long one. I'm Apollonia, 32, female, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had a pretty decent life with my husband, David, 31, male. We had the house in an okay neighborhood, both making good money, and to everyone on the outside, we were that couple that seemed to have their life together. You know the type. We even had this giant Maine Coon cat named Thor, who was basically our first kid. Huge orange fluff ball that would sleep on my chest every night and attack my feet every morning at exactly 5:30 a.m. like clockwork. David always said Thor was more my cat than his. He wasn't wrong. Thor followed me around the house like a dog and would sit in the bathroom sink while I got ready for work. For 2 years, we had been talking about starting a family. 2 freaking years. At first, it was exciting, dreaming together about our future kids. But as time went on, I noticed David pulling away, distracted, constantly, too tired or too busy with work. At first, I chalked it up to stress. But deep down, I knew something was off. One night, after yet another vague excuse about staying late at the office, I sat on the bathroom floor crying. I didn't even fully understand why. It wasn't just about kids. It was about feeling like I was the only one still holding up the dream we had promised each other. All our friends were moving forward, getting married, having children, posting their perfect family pics on Instagram, while David and I were stuck in this strange limbo. I kept telling myself marriage was about teamwork, that couples go through hard seasons, that love was supposed to be stronger than distance. I was wrong. The signs were all there, I just didn't want to admit them. He was suddenly secretive with his phone, stepping outside to take calls that lasted far too long. He started suggesting that he should handle more of the financial paperwork since I was already stressed with work. At first, I thought he was just trying to help. We even joked about how he was finally becoming the responsible one. I trusted him completely. Then, one random Tuesday night, I was going through some boring insurance and banking paperwork, just making sure everything was squared away. David was already asleep, and I was at the kitchen table with Thor purring in my lap, sorting through all the forms and statements we'd collected. That's when I noticed something weird, a withdrawal authorization with my name signed on it, except I hadn't signed it. At first, I thought I was just tired and reading it wrong, but the more I looked, the more my stomach dropped. My signature, forged. My accounts, drained. Investments I had worked years to build, quietly transferred into places I didn't recognize. That was the moment everything in my chest went cold. I told myself there had to be some mistake. The bank probably messed up. Maybe it was some clerical error. There was no way David would do this. He couldn't. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, Thor curled up at my feet, my mind screaming with questions I didn't want answered. The next morning, I waited until David left for work, then drove straight to the bank. I remember sitting in the parking lot for nearly 20 minutes, just trying to work up the courage to go in, because deep down, I think I already knew. When I finally walked in, the banker smiled, polite and professional, until I showed her the forms. Then her face shifted. That little frown, the quick flick of her eyes back to mine. This withdrawal was approved under joint marital authorization, she explained carefully. We have your husband's ID and a matching signature from your file. Matching signature? I asked, my voice barely steady. Because that's not mine. She hesitated. It appears your husband signed on your behalf. Everything inside me went cold. So you just let him move my assets without actually confirming with me? Her face went pale. Mrs. Wilson, he presented documents that appeared valid. This isn't supposed to happen, but it did, I snapped, trying not to lose it in the middle of the lobby. I left before I started screaming. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my keys. I needed to confront David. I called my boss on the drive home, told him I had a family emergency. He didn't even ask questions, just told me to take whatever time I needed. I pulled into our driveway, and as I turned off the car, I remember thinking this was going to be the line in my life. Everything before now, and everything after. And I was right. I walked into the house and slammed the door behind me. Thor bolted from his window perch like I had set off a firecracker. Poor guy hated loud noises. I expected David to be at work, but there he was, sitting on our couch, head in his hands, When he looked up, his face was all red and puffy, eyes swollen like he'd been crying. I barely made it inside when he said, "You went to the bank." It wasn't even a question. That's when I knew for sure this wasn't some mix-up. He knew exactly what I had found out. I just stood there, staring at him, not saying a word. Honestly, I was afraid if I started talking, I'd start yelling, and I've never been the yelling type. "My friend Olivia works there," he whispered. "She texted me that you were asking questions. She told me you were upset." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "Is that the same friend who helped you move my assets without telling me?" He sucked in a breath, his whole body flinching. That was all I needed to see. He knew exactly what he'd done. "Why?" My voice came out ice cold. I didn't even recognize it as my own. He rubbed his face, looking anywhere but at me. At one point, he tried to reach for my hand, and I stepped back like he was trying to hand me a snake. "You wouldn't understand," he finally said, still not meeting my eyes. "Try me." I wanted to protect us. I wanted to make sure we had security, strong investments, meaning. He hesitated, then finally said it. "I moved them into accounts under my name. Safer that way, cleaner." Safer for who? Cleaner for who? I was doing it for us. I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because this wasn't just betrayal. This was insanity. "Don't lie to me, David. You were covering your own tracks." He froze. "Because I found more than the forged withdrawals," I said, pulling the printed emails I had grabbed from his desk earlier. "I found these, messages with Ryan Matthews." His face drained of color. "Your ex," I spat. "The one you promised me you hadn't spoken to in years. The one you've apparently been funneling my money toward while sneaking off to see him." David's lips parted, but no words came out. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. I stood there gripping those papers so tightly my knuckles went white. "Tell me the truth," I demanded. David finally looked up, and for the first time since I had met him, I saw shame in his eyes. Real shame. "Yes," he whispered. "I've been seeing Ryan." I felt like the air had been punched out of me. My legs wobbled beneath me, and I had to lean against the doorway just to stay upright. "You stole from me," I said slowly, each word tasting like acid. "And you cheated on me. With him." He started rambling, words spilling out of his mouth too fast to follow. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean for it to happen. At first it was just reconnecting, old friends catching up. Then it turned into more. "But it doesn't mean I don't love you." I laughed bitterly. "Doesn't mean you don't love me? You drained my accounts, David. You forged my name. You've been sneaking around for months. That's not love. That's a con." Thor padded silently into the room and sat in the corner, tail flicking, his green eyes locked on us like he knew something was wrong. David buried his face in his hands again. "I made mistakes, okay? I just wanted to feel alive again. And Ryan understood me in ways you don't. I felt like I'd been slapped." "Understood you? He understood you because you gave him everything that belonged to me." His voice broke. "It wasn't about the money." "Then why is my retirement fund in your private account? Why did you empty my savings into shell accounts? Why did you need Olivia at the bank to cover your tracks?" He had no answer. I shook my head slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you?" When he didn't respond, I realized the silence was its own confession. I turned and walked toward the bedroom. I grabbed Thor's carrier from the closet, scooped him up despite his protests, and tossed in some food and his favorite toy. "You're leaving?" David asked, his voice breaking. "I'm leaving," I said flatly. "I'm not going to stand here and beg for scraps of loyalty from a man who sold me out to his ex-boyfriend." "It's not what you think," he shouted, standing to block the doorway. I stared him down, my voice low and steady. "Move, or I swear to God I'll call the police and have you arrested for fraud before the night is over." His shoulders sagged, he stepped aside. I left without looking back. I drove aimlessly for hours, Thor meowing miserably in his carrier beside me. At one point I pulled into a gas station parking lot and just sat there, staring at the dashboard, wondering how the life I thought was secure had collapsed in a single day. Eventually, I ended up at my best friend Mark's place. Didn't even call first. Just showed up at his door with a cat carrier and eyes so swollen from crying I could barely see. "Apollonia?" he said, shocked. Then he saw my face. "Shit, get in here." I gave him the short version while he grabbed me a blanket and set up a spare room. His girlfriend Jen came home midway through the story and went full crisis mode, making tea, setting out tissues, pulling Thor into her lap to keep him calm. That night, I lay in their guest bed staring at the ceiling, Thor curled against my chest, his soft purr the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. My phone buzzed over and over with David's calls, but I turned it off. I couldn't hear any more lies. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Let's call her Vanessa, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had helped my brother through his divorce years earlier. When she asked what was going on, I laid it all out. She frowned. Apollonia, this is serious. We're not just talking about infidelity here. This is fraud, financial exploitation, possibly even criminal theft. If you leave him now, we can file for divorce and protect your assets immediately. Can he still touch my accounts? I asked, my stomach in knots. Not if we freeze them, but we have to move fast. If he files first, he could argue for half of everything. And if he's already forging your signature, we don't want to give him more time. I nodded, gripping the phone so tightly my hand ached. Do it. The next few days were a blur. Vanessa helped me secure my accounts, move what remained into my name only, and file a motion to freeze any joint assets until the divorce. She also advised me to start gathering evidence. Emails, texts, anything that proved his betrayal and financial theft. That's when I remembered David's laptop. He always kept it password protected, but I knew his codes. He used the same 3 for everything and had once made me write them down when he forgot. Classic David, secretive but careless. I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds before logging in. Normally, I'd never dig through someone's private files. But normal went out the window when he decided to gamble away my life savings. At first, I didn't find much. Just work documents, Amazon orders, playlists. Then I opened his email trash folder. And there it was. Deleted messages between David and Olivia from the bank discussing how to move accounts without raising suspicion. Notes about when she would be on shift so she could push through paperwork quietly. But the worst was an email thread with Ryan Matthews, his college boyfriend, the one he'd dated for years before me, the one he had sworn was ancient history. The subject line, "Are you sure about this?" I felt sick as I opened it. The emails started innocently enough, catching up, reminiscing about college days, little jokes. Then David started sharing details about our marriage, about my salary, about our investments. Then came the line that made my stomach twist. I can move most of her funds into new accounts. Once it's set, we'll have everything we need. She won't suspect a thing. Ryan's reply, "Are you sure she won't find out?" David, "She trusts me completely. What she doesn't know won't hurt her." My hands shook so badly I had to steady them against the desk. It wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated theft. A long con. I forwarded everything to myself, then deleted the sent messages and emptied the trash so David wouldn't know what I'd found. Then I closed the laptop and sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the wall, trying not to throw up. The man I married wasn't just cheating. He was robbing me blind. When I got back to Mark's, I sent everything to Vanessa. She called almost immediately. "This changes everything," she said. "This isn't just grounds for divorce, it's a criminal case. With this kind of evidence, the judge is going to tear him apart." "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice hollow. "Stay put. Don't confront him yet. Let me handle the paperwork. Meanwhile, keep documenting everything. And Apollonia?" "Yes?" "You're stronger than you think. He wants you to feel powerless. Don't give him that satisfaction." I hung up, staring down at Thor, who was pawing curiously at my phone. For the first time in days, I managed a small smile. "It's just you and me now, buddy," I whispered. Thor meowed softly, and for a moment I believed it. 5 days later, I agreed to meet David at a coffee shop, neutral territory, public enough that I wouldn't lose my temper. I got there early and picked a corner table. My hands were shaking as I stirred a coffee I wasn't even drinking. When David walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked pale, gaunt, like he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from me, immediately reaching for my hands. I pulled back. "Apollonia, please," he started, voice low. "I know I screwed up. I know you're angry, but we can fix this." "Fix what exactly?" I asked, staring him down. "The fact that you drained my accounts? The fact that you've been sneaking around with Ryan? Or maybe the part where you lied to my face every single day?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, David? Enlighten me." He leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. "I was lost. I made mistakes. But I did it because I wanted more for us. I thought if I invested the money differently, we'd be set for life. And Ryan, he was just—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence," I snapped. "Ryan wasn't just anything. He was your ex. You chose him over me. You chose him over us." His jaw tightened. It wasn't love, Apollonia. It was a distraction. I still love you. I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing too loudly in the quiet cafe. Love? You don't love me. You love control. You love getting what you want, no matter who you destroy to get it. For the first time, anger flickered in his eyes. You don't understand. No, I cut him off. I understand perfectly. You thought you could steal from me, betray me, and I'd never find out. And even if I did, you thought I'd be too weak to leave. We sat there in silence for a long moment. Finally, I stood, slinging my bag over my shoulder. This conversation is over, I said. My lawyer will be in touch. His voice cracked as he called after me. Please, don't do this. We can still be a family. I didn't even turn around. We stopped being a family the day you decided my trust was worth less than your greed. Over the next week, I lived like I had two lives. During the day, I went to work, plastering on fake smiles, pretending everything was fine when coworkers asked about David. At night, I met with Vanessa, documenting every shred of evidence I could find. Bank statements, emails, messages from Olivia at the bank. One afternoon, when I knew David would be out, I drove back to the house to grab more clothes. Walking into my own home with my key felt strange, like I was trespassing. That's when I found another layer of betrayal. David's desk drawer, left slightly open, held a file folder stuffed with documents. Credit card applications in my name, loan forms I had never seen, all of them with forged signatures. My stomach twisted as I realized what he was doing. Not only had he stolen my savings, he was building debt in my name, trying to sink me even deeper so that when everything collapsed, I'd look like the reckless one. I stuffed the folder into my bag, my hands trembling. I took pictures of everything before sending scans to Vanessa. Her response came fast. This is gold. It shows premeditation. We're not just looking at divorce, we're looking at criminal fraud charges. I sat on the guest bed at Mark's that night, Thor nestled in my lap, staring at the evidence spread out before me. My entire marriage reduced to lies and forged signatures. And the worst part? Some tiny, foolish part of me still missed him. A week later, Vanessa arranged a preliminary hearing to freeze all joint assets officially. David showed up with a smug expression, wearing the same suit I'd bought him for his last promotion. He didn't even look at me until the judge entered. The hearing was quick. Vanessa presented the bank records, my sworn statement, and the forged documents. David's lawyer tried to argue that I had given implicit consent, but the judge shut him down immediately. These signatures are fraudulent, the judge said firmly. All joint assets are frozen until further notice. David's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. When we walked out of the courthouse, he grabbed my arm. Do you know what you've done? He hissed. I yanked free. No, David, do you? That night, unable to sleep, I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos of us, smiling at barbecues, traveling, decorating the Christmas tree. Every picture felt like a lie now. Thor jumped onto the bed and curled against me, his steady purring anchoring me to the present. I whispered into the darkness, it's just you and me now. And for the first time, I believed it. The following weekend, I finally got the full truth. Ryan. Vanessa and I tracked him down. He wasn't hard to find. Still working as a physical therapist at a clinic 30 minutes away. I booked an appointment under a fake name, my heart pounding as I walked into the treatment room. When he saw me instead of the patient he expected, his face went slack with shock. Apollonia, he said, standing quickly. You know why I'm here, I said coldly. To his credit, he didn't deny it. He sank back onto his stool, running a hand through his hair. He told me you knew, that you were fine with it, that it was just financial stuff, not serious. And you believed him? I demanded. He winced. Looking back, no. But David can be persuasive. I thought he was telling the truth. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. So, you were fine taking stolen money, fine being the other man, fine helping him tear apart our marriage? Ryan looked away. I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know he was forging things in your name. If you had, what? You'd have stopped? Or would you have just hidden better? He had no answer. I left without another word, my chest burning with rage. On the drive back, I called Vanessa. He admitted it, I told her. Not everything, but enough. Enough to prove collusion. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Good. This will bury them both. That night, I sat with Thor curled against me and felt something I hadn't in months. Power. David thought he could steal from me, lie to me, cheat with his ex, and leave me powerless. But I wasn't powerless. I was done being his victim. I invited David to meet at the house that evening. Neutral ground would just turn into a scene, and I needed him somewhere I controlled. Before I left Mark's, I had one more call with Vanessa. We reviewed the plan. I would keep the conversation calm. I would ask direct questions. I would get him to admit what he did. When I walked in, the place was spotless. My favorite dinner on the table. Flowers, soft music. Like this was a minor disagreement we could sweep under a rug. "Apollonia," he said, rushing to hug me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. "I've missed you," he whispered. "We can fix this." "We need to talk," I said, staying on my feet, even though he gestured to sit. I took out my phone and hit record in my pocket. "Start with the accounts. Why did you move my assets?" He swallowed. "I told you, to protect us. Better returns, less risk." "Did you forge my signature?" Silence, then the smallest nod. "I signed on your behalf. It was still for us." "Did Olivia help you push the paperwork through?" Another nod. "She just made it smoother." "And the transfers to the private accounts in your name?" His voice went thin. "Temporary. I was going to move it back." "Tell me about R. Matthews," I said, my pulse steadying as the words left my mouth. "Why are you sending money to R. Matthews?" He flinched, then tried for a shrug that didn't land. An old friend needed help. "Old friend," I repeated. "From college?" "Yes." "Full name." He stared at the table like the wood grain might save him. "Rihanna," he said finally. "Rihanna Matthews. She goes by Ryan in messages." There it was. The truth at last, without the twist he'd hoped I wouldn't untangle. "Your ex-girlfriend," I said, not a question. He covered his face with his hands. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I stopped the recording and slid the phone into my bag. "It already went that far," I said. "My lawyer will be in touch." His voice cracked. "Please." "No," I said, looking at him, really looking at him, for what felt like the first time. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a plan." I picked up Thor's carrier and left. That night, I sent the recording to Vanessa. Her text came back almost immediately. Perfect. He admitted forgery, transfers, and the relationship. We move in the morning. The next weeks blurred into motion. Vanessa filed for divorce, a motion to freeze assets, and a criminal complaint for fraud and identity theft. We subpoenaed bank logs, device histories, and messages. The bank folded fast when confronted with the forged signatures and Olivia's internal chat approvals. A day later, Vanessa forwarded an email. "FYI," she wrote, "subpoena confirms R. Matthews is Rihanna Matthews, female, uses Ryan professionally." I read it twice. The ground steadied beneath me. No more shadows, no more confusion, just facts. I kept my head down at work, dodged questions, and spent nights at Mark's couch with Thor sprawled like a furry comet across my legs. Every call from an unknown number made my stomach lurch. I let Vanessa answer for me. When the preliminary hearing finally came, David walked in with that clipped, brittle confidence I recognized from every time he'd spun a story and expected to be believed. He wore the navy suit I'd bought him for his last promotion. He didn't look at me. The judge took the bench. Vanessa stood like a blade unsheathed. She laid out the forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers, the messages with Olivia timing quiet paperwork, the payments to Rihanna. She played the recording. "I signed on your behalf." She just made it smoother. Rihanna Matthews. David's lawyer tried to argue implicit consent. The judge held up a hand. "These signatures are not implicit," she said, voice cool and even. "They are forged. All marital assets are to remain frozen. Ms. Wilson." She looked at me, and for the first time in months I felt seen. "You will have exclusive control of your individual accounts pending final adjudication. Mr. Wilson is enjoined from opening new lines of credit in Ms. Wilson's name." David's jaw tightened, mine unclenched. Outside, he caught my arm. "Do you know what you've done?" he hissed. I pulled free. "I protected myself. Try it sometime." Vanessa worked like a storm. The bank terminated Olivia. HR memos and server logs landed in our evidence folder with timestamps that matched every smooth approval she'd slid through. Rihanna's messages filled in the rest. "Are you sure she won't find out?" "She trusts me completely. What she doesn't know won't hurt her." At night, when the paperwork finally stopped humming, I learned how silence sounded. Thor learned the new apartment first, then the windows, then the perfect sun patch on the kitchen floor. Some mornings I'd find him there on his back, paws in the air, a ridiculous creature in a peaceful world I was building inch by inch. Friends split like fault lines. Some believed David's story. She's unstable. She overreacted. It was a misunderstanding. The ones who mattered texted grocery lists and bad jokes and "I'm outside, open your door." I kept those texts. My parents were steady. My mom cried on the phone. My dad said, "You're doing the right thing, kiddo," and then drove over to change the locks without being asked. The final hearing came with rain and the kind of courthouse coffee that tastes like cardboard and hope. David sat across the aisle with his lawyer and a face I didn't recognize. He glanced at me once and looked away. Vanessa stood. She didn't waste words. She didn't need to. The record spoke. Forgery, transfers, collusion, admissions. The bank's internal discipline report. Rihanna's thread confirming she knew I was not aware. Olivia's smoother approvals. David's lawyer tried one last time. "My client felt financially insecure," he began. "He made poor decisions out of fear." The judge lifted a hand. "I've seen fear. This is not fear. This is calculated deceit." She read the ruling like a metronome. Divorce granted. My assets remained my sole property. Restitution owed to me from any funds still traceable. No alimony. Protective order against opening credit in my name. Referral of the forgery packet to the district attorney for review. One tap of the gavel, I whispered, without meaning to. Case closed. Outside, I took the deepest breath I had taken in months. The rain smelled like cold tin and beginnings. I went home. Thor met me at the door, meowing like he had something urgent to report. I scooped him up and buried my face in his fur. "We did it," I told him. He headbutted my chin like he agreed. 6 months passed. I kept the apartment. I started browsing listings for a small house with a yard and a good bird line. I deleted social media, then came back when the noise faded. Through an acquaintance, I heard David moved into a short-term rental. Work wasn't going well. Rihanna had needed space. I tried not to care. Final update. I was home watching a game with Thor when someone started pounding on my door. I checked the camera. David stood there with his mother, his sister, and a face that looked like a mask too small for his bones. Against my better judgment, I opened the door on the chain. "It's time you took responsibility for what you did to our family," his mother announced. I blinked. "What I did?" David stepped forward. "I'm drowning. I lost my job. Rihanna left. I need access to the accounts." I stared. There was a whole court case about this. Remember the judgment? The forged signatures? The restitution? You don't have access to my life anymore. His sister shoved her hands into her coat pockets. A real wife would help her husband when he's at his lowest. "A real husband doesn't steal from his wife," I said, and closed the door a fraction. David's jaw flexed. "We know where you work," he said softly. "We know your parents' address." I pulled my phone up so the little red recording light faced them. "Are you threatening me?" I asked, the calm in my voice surprising even me. "Should I call the police now, or do you want to leave peacefully?" Silence. His mother tugged at his sleeve. "Come on," she muttered. "This isn't helping." They left. I watched them on the camera until they were gone. Then I called Vanessa and filed a police report. I sent footage, saved screenshots, and added another camera to the back door. I emailed my boss a heads up. He wrote back, "Proud of you. We've got your back." Thor was extra clingy that night. I let him be. I sat on the couch and listened to the quiet and felt it fill the places where fear used to live. Looking back, I'm still amazed at how quickly someone I thought I knew could turn into a stranger. The David I married and the David who did this, they're the same person. I just didn't see it until it was almost too late. If there's any lesson here, it's this. You never really know someone, but you can know yourself. You can choose you. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. Now I'm doing okay. Not great, not terrible, just okay. And sometimes, okay is enough. A week after David showed up at my door, things escalated again. I was at work when my phone buzzed. A private number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Apollonia," David's voice rasped. "We need to talk. Please, just hear me out." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my receptionist called my desk. "There's a man in the lobby asking for you. Says it's urgent." I didn't need to ask who. My heart pounded as I walked down. There he was, pacing the tile, wringing his hands like a cornered animal. "You can't be here," I said. My voice was steady, but my stomach was twisting. "I don't know what else to do," he blurted. "I've lost everything. Rihanna left me. My accounts are frozen. My parents won't even look at me. I need help, Apollonia. You're the only one I have left. I stared at him, barely believing his audacity. The only one you have left? You forged my signature. You emptied my savings. You slept with your ex. And you want me to help you? His eyes went wet. I made mistakes, but I loved you. No, I said quietly. You loved control. You loved my stability. You loved my assets. You loved having me blind and compliant. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back sharply. Don't touch me. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling security and the police. Security came anyway. They escorted him out while he shouted my name like a desperate man begging for a bus that had already left the station. My coworkers stared. My boss put a hand on my shoulder. Go home, he said softly. That night, I sat on the couch with Thor sprawled across my lap, purring as if nothing had happened. The glow of the security cameras lit my phone screen. I scrolled through the footage of David being dragged from my office, proof that he had crossed the last line. I emailed it to Vanessa. Her reply, "This helps. We'll reinforce the restraining order. If he pushes again, it's jail time." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The weeks turned into months. Slowly, the noise around me quieted. David's family stopped trying to contact me after the restraining order took hold. Olivia faced charges from the bank and lost her job. Rihanna disappeared from the picture entirely. And me? I kept moving forward. I found a small house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a yard, and a little sunroom where Thor could watch birds all day. For the first time in forever, I felt safe unlocking a door and knowing everything inside was mine. My parents visited often. My mom brought homemade soup. My dad installed motion lights in the backyard. Friends came by with pizza and stories. I learned to laugh again without flinching. One evening, sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, I realized something. I no longer thought of David when I thought about the future. He had become a closed chapter. A scar, yes, but not an open wound. Final update. It was a Saturday when the knock came. I hesitated, checked the camera. Not David. His sister. Alone. Against my instincts, I opened the door, just a crack. "Can we talk?" she asked. I crossed my arms. "About what?" She shifted nervously. "David's in rehab, for gambling mostly. The fraud investigation, it's bad. He might do time. He asked me to tell you he's sorry." I let her words hang in the air. "Sorry doesn't erase forged documents," I said finally. "Sorry doesn't refill accounts. Sorry doesn't heal betrayal." She nodded slowly. "I know. I just thought you should hear it." For a long moment I studied her face, then I closed the door gently. I didn't need his apologies. I didn't need his family's pity. I didn't need closure from him. I had given it to myself. Looking back now, I see everything more clearly. The red flags I ignored. The excuses I made. The way I thought loyalty meant tolerating disrespect. If there's any lesson in all this, it's that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't build a future on lies. And you can't let fear of being alone chain you to someone who profits from your trust. I lost money. I lost years. I lost illusions. But I kept myself. And that, I've learned, is more than enough. Thor leaps onto the windowsill, chasing the shadow of a bird across the glass. The sun streams in. My house, my life, my peace. Sometimes the quiet feels like the loudest victory of all.